Yep, we're live and online. We're only 3 minutes late. What's happening, bro?
We can take 3 minutes late. I'm happy with that.
What's happening? It's episode number what? 9?
9.
I'm happy about this.
I know, we're here. We have a sofa.
Which means, we're in slightly different
We're
setting,
in comfort
aren't we?
this time, which I'm happy about. I don't have to straddle a chair.
I'm not sure. Oh, yeah,
I'll straddle you now.
with the wide sides. Oh, we're starting like this.
Well,
this is the
we both come
beginning.
in hot because I haven't slept and you sat on my side of the sofa, and so.
Yeah, you said you wanted to sit on the left. I don't know why.
Well, I was sat on the left, and then you moved me.
It's just so I can get to the laptop easier. I just want to see what's going on.
That's fine.
I don't know how I feel about the leather sofa background. How do you feel? I feel casual. I like how we're sat the exact same as well. We've both got the exact same one Lego.
This is the way to sit.
Ladies and gentlemen should go to YouTube if you're only listening to us on Spotify.
YouTube's
or
the place
iTunes.
to be.
Check us out because you're looking smooth today.
Oh, thank you,
the
sir.
shades
I'm
on
just hiding
your-
my raccoon eyes.
Fine, I don't know what you mean. Were you being serious that you've not slept?
Not really, yeah, no.
Oh, why? What has occurred?
Oh, just poor life choices, like going to bed late. Entirely self-inflicted things, you know.
All right, fine then. So this means we're on week what of the podcast? Is it week?
This is
5?
starting week 5.
Yes.
Yeah, because 10 after this.
Episode 10.
Double digits.
Which I'm glad about because we've got Rebecca Grayson coming on, and that's nice. Because I'd like to do like milestone episodes, I feel like episode 10 should be a bit of a milestone. So that's good.
100.
She's coming on, that's nice. 100, 200, 300.
1,000.
On episode 1000, we need to do it skydiving.
Ah!
Or something like this.
Dude,
I
you
jump
know
out
I
of the plane,
will.
Eat less calories, I jump out.
Okay, you jump
You
out
got
of the
improved
plane.
mobility and just jump out.
I'll jump out without a parachute, and then I've got to try and get to you and attach myself to you, and that'll be fun.
No, I don't like this game. Would you ever go skydiving though legitimately?
Yeah.
Would you?
I, for real, if I knew what I was doing, I'd do it what I just said. That'd be cool. Jump out and try and throw the parachute out, and then go.
I would not allow you to do this. I love you too much to allow this.
I'd love to go down and play like a game of chess on the way down. Skydiving chess.
Okay. Have you ever looked at the statistics of how often it goes wrong? We should start the timer on the podcast.
Oh, nice.
With skydiving.
No, I haven't.
I have. I can't remember what
It
it
can't
is,
be
but it's
high.
no, but it's some. It goes wrong sometimes.
Well,
And that's...
people die in their sleep, you know.
Oh, I love this argument.
The stupidest argument of all time. I'd be up for it. I'd do it.
I think I'd do it.
What about bungee jumping?
I would do bungee jumping.
Yeah.
Would you?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've never done any of these things though.
I was in Wales last summer with Dave and my missus, and we were walking over this bridge that had some people jumping off the top of it. It was maybe like a 8-meter drop to the water, like sizable enough to make you not want to do it, kind of thing. And
8 meters is hard for me to imagine for some reason. So what are we talking? Like, is that like jumping out of like a 2nd-story window, or is it higher? Is it like jumping off a roof? Or
Maybe-
like a 2-story building, or what is it?
yeah, maybe the top of this building. Yeah.
Oh, that's high.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I got there, and I was like, well, you know when you want to do something but you're scared of it, kind of thing.
Jump
as
off
well.
that into water.
Yeah.
I would not do this.
So the second we pulled up, I just started taking my clothes off, and Roxy was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Well, if I don't just do it, I'm not going to do it." So I just got straight on top of it and then just jumped straight off.
Did you jump like
great.
pencil, or did you jump like dive?
I penciled it.
Did you?
I
Did you
don't-
hold your nose or not?
No, Dave followed me and he did that.
Penciled it as well.
Yeah.
I've never done that. But
For all the love I have for Dave, you can be a bitch about things. I have a photo of him jumping off it, and it's a very anxious jump.
It'd be better than my jump because I'd be purely land-based.
Land-based mammal.
There's no air or sea happening for this.
Which is weird because you're very sleek and kind of built for the ocean.
Do you think like a dolphin?
Yeah, like a
Just
dolphin.
streamlined.
You don't have enough blubber on you.
Just
but-
smooth.
Yeah, maybe the beard would hold you back. Do you know, I've never seen you without any kind of facial hair, have I?
I haven't really.
I feel lied to.
21.
I've only ever seen half your face. This isn't friendship.
Since about, is it not? You can just part and have a little look close. I assure you, there's a perfectly fine jawline and chin. So
I
it's all
think your
very
face has
normal.
gotten squarer, like as in more jewellery.
I hope so.
Do you reckon? Do you reckon?
No, I don't know.
I think so.
You definitely have.
Do you reckon?
Yeah.
I've
If I look
become...
at photos of you from even a few years ago, but also the beard density's increased dramatically, which also adds.
I trimmed it yesterday. I'm feeling pretty
You've done well,
handsome.
actually.
Thank you.
You've done well.
Yeah. She's saying something because I don't know how to trim my beard. Need to get a trim booked in. Yeah.
With the brother.
With the brother.
Sponsored by Marcus Hukin Hair at Instagram.com.
Yay, Marcus Hukin Hair. My favourite.
His shop's called MH.
Yep.
Is that... Yes. Is that all?
I think so.
He's just called MH, Aberdale Road.
Yeah.
It was a good episode with him, wasn't it?
It was fun. We had fun.
By now this episode comes out, other people are going to have heard the previous episode, even though it's not online currently for us right now. And there's going to be some editing. Isn't there?
Some things were said.
Done on that podcast. It's going to be the first podcast where we're going to have to edit parts out. Yeah, beep, 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 beep.
Oh well. It's nice. We're getting comfortable with it. This is what that means.
It's just natural conversations, I guess, isn't it? And what comes up comes up. We had topics that we were going to try and cover with your brother, and we covered absolutely none of them, didn't we? We just. And
Do you mean like always?
Kind of like always, yeah. Which we have a topic of conversation for today.
We have a fun topic of conversation for today.
Thanks to you. You suggested this topic, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, progressive overload.
Yeah, and I also think it's a nice progression of the podcast as well, where we've tried for about 3 or 4 episodes to talk about what a beginner should do.
My goal today is to actually spit some facts and to be coherent with it and try and get a good bit done. That's kind of my goal.
Okay, good, because I've also come prepared for action.
We can shits and gigs, but...
So yeah, we've spoke a few times about what beginners should do, and we've put all across bits and bobs with a couple of varieties of different people. And now one of the things that beginners should do is progressive overload, isn't it? So I feel like progressive overload is not the most important training principle. Safety is the most important training principle.
Okay, I see.
See where I'm going with that? Safety is always number one. You can't get injured. You don't want to try...
Safety third, as I always say.
So shut up. Safety third. No, safety's first always. And I know you know and agree. Because if you get injured, then you're not progressing anything. You're regressing, you're degressing, you're ungressing.
Oh dear.
You're reversing. So safety's always number one. Consistency would probably be number 2.
Yeah, that's fair.
Wouldn't it?
But even then, only for a short period of time, because you can do something consistently with low intensity or consistently poorly.
Oh, wrong,
and get nowhere. But if you do something...
If you're a super noob, you'd still get somewhere, wouldn't you? Even if you came to the gym and you did a bit of something and it was kind of wrong.
But then it'd stall. If there was
you
no
wouldn't get very
progressive
far. You'd get somewhere, but not far.
Yeah. As per that standard kind of principle of everything in the gym being an adaptation to a stimulus, if you stimulate something to the point of adaptation and then don't continue to increase the stimulus, you'll have that immediate kind of ramp up, and then it'll drop off.
Because the beginning of the training is the increase.
Stimulus.
Yeah, because before there was none.
Yeah.
And by stimulus we mean work done kind of thing on a muscle, or like you could look at it as maybe pressure applied, or
there's a few
work
different
put
things.
through.
There's a few different things.
A muscle would be, that's what we mean when we say stimulus, isn't it? So one of the things that makes progress is making muscles do more work than they're used to, essentially. And when you just start as a beginner, even turning up and doing 5 minutes on the bike, if you haven't done that, you haven't done that. Even if you just do a couple of sets of knee press ups and then a bit of a row, that's way more than you used to if you're not used to it.
Yeah.
Isn't it? So that gets you results at the beginning. But then you have to start taking it a little bit more specific.
And those intensities can be quite skewed as well sometimes if someone starts with something that's a bit too difficult for them or something. Like, they might not think they're working intensely, but it might inherently be intense, like going for... Like when people go for a run for the first time, they kind of often jump in at the deep end and think, right, I'm going to go for a run, I need to die. And you get that cardiovascular intensity that is a bit too much, and maybe not necessarily beneficial, at least in the long run. And then also like the fact that you're going on a run and you've got body weight plus gravity coming down on your knees every time. And if you've not trained legs before, ever, that's a lot of intensity.
You're so right about all this. People always do that with running. They always run too far. They try and run too far, but mostly what people do is they run too fast at the beginning because they think that... they
need to feel...
Yeah, and they also think people are judging them. You know, like people in cars and other people, they don't want to be seen usually like running outside, being really slow about it.
Yeah,
so people set off way too fast.
I've done this many times.
Yeah, and then they wonder why they can only get 3 streets down, and then you absolutely just blow it.
Trying to be Jason Bourne, just chipping down the street.
And it is easy for about the first minute. When you set off fast, you think, oh, actually, this is not that bad, actually. I can keep this going. And then you gas real fast. So I've got a few beginners into running, and always the most effective thing to do is slow them down so they can go further, because more volume equals more progress. So slow down and do more rather than burning out 2 or 3
Specifically with endurance training that's like 30 plus minutes, volume over intensity does seem to be the key. In more,
if you're going for endurance.
In more short duration stuff, intensity can have its place. Like in sprints.
High intensity interval training, HIIT.
Absolutely. And that makes sense because it's an intense exercise, whereas
Yeah, it
a
challenges
marathon
the-
is
It
more-
challenges the fitness, but if you're talking endurance, that's not necessarily the same thing. Although marathon runners do incorporate sprints and high intensity intervals
Yep.
to like build the sort of cardiovascular system and the VO2 max kind of game, like how, which is how much oxygen your lungs can take in, basically. Isn't it? You can kind of build all these things. And you're right about the gym as well. People come in and they go way too hard, way too fast, and do way too much. I feel like it's less often than running, because sometimes people come into the gym and they don't have enough confidence to do that much. So they'll do a few machines that they understand and then go back. So that's like, but even then, some people come in, they do way too much. They absolutely smash themselves. They do way too many sets. They wonder why they're sore for like 1.5 weeks.
And it comes down to a personality type a lot of the time, because I have known people before that have trained for a year before they've trained appropriately intensely because they just can't be bothered. So that's like one end of the spectrum.
I've known people train for years.
Yeah, true. Yeah, well said. And then at the other end of that, there's people. Our old client, Amin
Gadazi.
Yeah.
Dr. Gadazi.
PD. He would be an example of someone that would just come in and cane it on day one.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? So there's a middle ground there. And if you've not trained before and you're new to it, or even if it is a new stimulus, it's hard to often gauge exactly what you can do.
Yeah.
Like we now, as well-trained people, trainees, we could jump into probably an entirely new exercise, but still have a good gauge of rate of perceived exertion because we've got so many reference points behind us.
Yes.
But if you've just not really put your body through such turmoil before, like in a short duration, exercise, power output, strength, what you can lift, whatever it is, you don't really have a gauge as to how you're actually working. So one of the things I like to do with clients is obviously train them for maybe a week or two when I first get them if they're completely new, and train them well outside the kind of effective rep zones, training to failure, all that stuff. Just have them go through the movements, which comes into one of the first things of progressive overload, which is the skill of it, but we'll talk about that. But then after a week or two, actually have them take something that I consider is a safe movement of theirs. Maybe it's push-ups or something, something not like an incline dumbbell press, not something complicated. Take that to complete failure and just keep drilling them. Nope, go again. I don't care if you're dead, go again, try again. And just get them to gauge where they think
they can't do another versus
they can't do another, and then just keep going. And that's even in a de-strain.
Yeah, I like what you're doing there as well. Pick a nice, safe exercise. Nothing can go wrong. It's just press-ups on the floor. You either push up or you don't. Kind of
You'll lie back down.
You wouldn't do it on squats. You don't do it on overhead press or anything like this, where you can get stuck or there's weights above you or coming down on you. So choose a nice, safe exercise. Yeah, I like that because a lot of people don't know how hard they can push themselves. I completely agree. Yeah. And I also think people can push themselves at the beginning. I think it's not like this with running. But with weights in the gym, with resistance training, people can push themselves harder than they actually need to. Like a beginner can come in and do 3 sets on press-ups or like a chest press machine, 3 sets on a row, maybe we do a little bit of shoulders, a pull down, and then 3 sets on squats and 3 sets on hamstring curl or something. And that's a real good session for a beginner. You've done nice 3 sets across a variety of muscle groups and stuff like that. But they won't necessarily be too tired. And they could probably do more. They could maybe do double. You could maybe do all that again, but then they'd just be obliterated. So I notice sometimes when beginners come into the gym, that's one of the things that leads them to do too much, is they feel like they can do more. And in my first few sessions with complete beginners who've never really trained, I have to say, okay, that's it. And they're like, really though, we could do, and I'm like, yeah, but we're not going to. We need to just start on this baseline and then build up from here. You've just done hundreds of reps more than you ever do.
Yeah.
So
and it's hard psychologically, innit? Because that's something that you want whenever you start anything new, you want to kind of smash it to do it. But like frequency and high volume for a new trainee is not the most important thing. It's more just the consistency.
Safety and consistency. Yeah. Do things right. Do them again.
Yeah.
Keep doing them.
Yeah.
Because if you do something really well or really hard but not often, you get worse results than doing it not as hard but more often.
Yeah, for sure.
Consistency is definitely key, I agree.
And I mean, in that intensity, there's differences between whether you're, say, training for... If you're training purely what you'd call like a bodybuilding style, just for hypertrophy, building muscle mass, as opposed to trying to isolate strength. And obviously there's a giant overlap there, but if you're training more for that, the intensity... the frequency can be kind of less frequent because that takes longer to recover from, say, like strength training. If you're doing like sets of 3 or something with submaximal load, you're not going to get that sore from that kind of training. Whereas if you do sets of 15, you probably are going to get quite sore. Not that soreness is a good metric of understanding, your progress, but
No, because it's not.
No, because that'll diminish quickly. Which is another thing to get used to, because even myself now, like, you don't train for a bit, you train and then you get DOMS the next day and you're like, oh yeah, that's positive feedback.
Explain what DOMS is though for the listeners.
DOMS is delayed onset muscle soreness, so just delayed through time muscle, your muscles are being sore, the ones you've trained. Those DOMS will much more likely come from hypertrophy, higher rep range training, so 10, let's say 5 to 30, it's a pretty broad spectrum. Whereas the strength stuff won't fatigue you as much. It's more of a neurological stimulus to start with. That's why you see bodybuilders are bigger than powerlifters, but powerlifters are stronger than bodybuilders.
I understand what you're saying, yeah. So that's called the stimulus recovery adaptation curve, isn't it? The SRA curve. Apply the stimulus to the muscle, then how long does it take to recover and then super physiologically adapt to a better position and then go again. You're saying that's longer through higher volumes, through higher rep training. Yeah, this makes sense. And to talk about just the muscle soreness, the DOMS, it's the soreness that you feel the day after or the day after the day after that you've done training or really any type of exercise, etc. And you're right, it's not really an indicator of progress. It can be, but it also can't be, because it's caused mainly by 2 things. One is new stimulus to the muscle. Something new happens. That could be progress. It could be more weight. True. It could be more reps. True. It could be better technique. True. But it could also just be, like, usually you use a really good squat stance and you're working it really effectively, and then you decide to do super wide stance for whatever reason. And it's not, let's say it's not better. Let's say it doesn't work well for you. You do less weight, you do less volume. If your legs are just not used to being in that position, you might end up real sore. Even though it might have been less productive. It might have not been as good as your normal squat.
Well, your split squats are an interesting example, because you're sat here with your ass on fire, aren't you?
I feel like I've been shot in the buttocks, literally.
You mean shot in the buttock? Mr. Gump.
Mr. Gump. Forrest Gump.
Yeah, go on. That's good.
That's a good film.
That is a great film.
That's a good film, isn't it?
Life is like a box of chocolates.
You never know what you're gonna get. Apart from if you just look at like the little shit that comes on the inside, because I always do every time. Because I don't like.
There's shit you want to avoid.
I don't want coconut. I don't want coconut or strawberry.
Go away.
I don't want any fruit flavors.
Stop trying to squeeze a semblance of health that's lying about health anyway into my chocolate.
Fruit. Get away from my dessert. I don't want not spending calories on anything like this. What was I saying? I've forgotten, bro.
Split squats, just talk about.
Oh, yeah. So I did a different technique
example.
yesterday. We spoke about this on a couple of episodes ago on the podcast, but you showed me a different technique. I did it yesterday. Just absolutely blasted. I also did deadlifts as well, just standard, which I don't usually do.
That's a good point, actually. That was another thing.
I do a lot of Romanian deadlifts. Sometimes I do sumo, but I very rarely do standard deadlifts.
Were you kind of, with your split squats, doing that almost RDL technique with the hip hinge in it as well?
I did a much shorter stance than usual and then kind of dropped down and back and then powered up and forward as hard as possible. Kind of not doing the full, like, I could have probably done a more hip swing if I wanted.
I'll add something to it a little bit for you, which is like when you go down, if you really try to smash glutes, by like 10 degrees, it's nice to flex your hips as you would start an RDL.
You mean lean forward, but like with a straight spine?
Yeah. So if you consider you've got maximum stability through all of your spine and then your foot and stuff, and as you go down and backwards, you also hinge your hips forward. The stretch you can get on your glute is so powerful. And then as you get to the top, lock it out like an RDL. That's ultimate glute behaviour.
Glute behaviour. I'm all about glute behaviour. I'm not even kidding, bro. Because I'm like skinny white man syndrome.
Yeah, it's not cool. It doesn't work for you. You need this wagon attached.
I'm trying to get cheeked up. I know, because everybody else on the podcast is cheeked up. I know, exactly. Everybody.
You got me and Grayson on. This isn't good for you.
I know, the glute guys are fucking around me.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You have ultimate quads, though, with all the separation, all the delts, all the chest,
the quads,
all the traps,
a bit ridiculous.
all the abs.
To be honest, this is all true.
Yeah. Even your head's veiny.
Thanks.
Man hasn't skipped.
And my glutes are not even bad, you know. They're not even undeveloped.
No.
I just have no body fat, so I have to like really try and build the muscle up because I have like literally no body fat. So it's like It's just not preferential storage.
Oh, crikey, it is bright, isn't it?
Is it now?
Oh, damn. Let me hide back behind these.
So, let's reverse a little bit and then get into the topic of the conversation. I would like to talk about, firstly, so progressive overload. I want to talk about what the definition of this is to even start with. Like, what are we even talking about, firstly?
Yeah. So, talking again about that adaptation principle, you can come to the gym and go through lots of movements and pick the right exercises. But if you don't do them with some kind of progressively, as in going through time, going forward, some kind of progressively increased stimulus, you are going to hit a plateau and not progress, or just never start progressing, kind of thing. So it's the idea of adding different ways of making an exercise or your approach to exercise harder, which there are a good few ways to do that.
I'd like to go through all these different ones.
Yeah.
Maybe we could just play a quick game of you name one, I name one, you name one, I name one. Okay. There isn't that many, so we'd run out pretty fast. Yeah, okay, so I understand what you're saying about this progressive overload, and hopefully the listeners do too. To use like a basic example, let's say you wanted to run a half marathon, but you only ever ran 5 kilometers. You'll never do it.
Yeah,
you can't just keep running 5k and expect to be able to run a half or a full marathon. At some point you have to increase the distance.
This principle makes sense. You know, it's common sense. It's like anything in life. If you're not trying to do more,
stronger.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't
it's just wildly specific within the gym. These things.
Yeah, because if you don't do this, you'll very quickly run out of results.
And if you don't do it right as well, like you'll get some results, kind of thing. But it's also something that's quite easy to understand, and there's some very basic principles in kind of which you do when, in my opinion, based on your reverse engineering of your goals. Like, you can figure out what you want, reverse engineer from that. And sometimes it's just obvious, like when you first walk into the gym, the first metric is just skill. It's just the motor neuron side of things. It's the figuring out exercises. The proprioception is where your body is in time, in space, and understanding how your body works. It's just the skill, just getting better at stuff.
Just being able to do the exercises.
That's number one.
I agree. That's primary principle number one, because otherwise it's just you're trying to, the progression of the progressive overload, the getting better at it. If you're building it on a shaky or unstable or incorrect foundation, this is never going to work, is it?
Yeah.
So what we're talking about here is, firstly, you need to come into the gym. We need to do things safely, and we need to do things correctly. We need to start practicing things, and then we need to get better at things, basically.
Yep.
If you don't get better, you won't get better.
Because there's some subcategories to that skill. For example, the safety is probably the first one of it, making sure that you're training safely. That's part of the skill.
Yeah, because if you get injured, you're screwed.
Yeah, this is a bad idea. The range of motion of an exercise is probably in there as well, which is one of the first things you could figure out. We train through as much range of motion as is safe for you, and that is specific to each person, but also to say that every body is designed to move through a full range of motion.
And so by range of motion, you mean what you're describing is how far the exercise moves.
Yes, and more specifically, just all joints through all ranges.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe there's some things you'll skip out there, like some people, not many people when they come to the gym are hitting like ankle through full range of motion. But if we're talking holistically from a just health point of view, mechanical health point of view, whatever, it's a good idea to take all joints through all ranges of motion.
Yeah, so as examples, if you're going to do squats, try and do squats as low and comfortably as you can go through it. Take it as far down as you can go.
Assuming good technique.
Yeah, and if you're going to do shoulder press, try and come all the way down and then go all the way up. And if you're going to do press ups, try and go all the way down and then all the way up, and pull ups and pull downs and everything basically.
And this is something we may discuss in the next podcast, because we're discussing with Bex what makes a good PT. And one of those things is that adaptability to understanding what someone can do safely and making them do it and set the parameters. So having a basic idea of biomechanics and what is where someone's technique may go from good to bad because of a mobility restriction, a strength deficit, a flexibility issue,
a previous injury,
these kind of things. So just choosing the safest range of motion for you that is as much as you can do without technique breakdown, basically.
We're going to do staff training on this as well.
Oh, I'm going to voice some people. Yeah, it's going to be good. I'm looking forward to that.
No, I am. This is going to be fantastic.
We'll start putting together some slides.
Yeah, we can do slides if you want, or we can just
I
write
want-
some stuff. Do you really?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do.
More
yeah.
for me, to be honest.
All right.
I'll get too scrambled and off on a tangent. I know what I'm like.
All right. Cool, yeah, but we're going to take people through movement patterns and assessing people
Yeah.
moving, aren't we? And
Yeah.
how to make steady improvements,
Yeah.
etc., etc. Exactly like you're saying, how to assess what a client can do and should do, and where are they, and what should we be doing to then move them forward to somewhere better. This is a very practical skill that you have to build over time, isn't it? That's not really something you can learn from books. You can a bit.
Yeah,
you kind
true.
of learn progressions a bit like through books, but you also just have to be able to watch. You have to have watched enough people squat wrong to be able
Yeah.
to kind of know why they're squatting wrong, and then be able to like fix it. And then also, what do you say to them to get them to understand what they're doing
So
wrong?
articulating it.
Yeah, the actual cue points that you use.
Because the way that you and I can talk is immensely condensed versus how I could relay that information to a new trainee, because we understand all the words that can access that information, whereas they don't. So you have to broaden it, use layman's terms, use anecdotes, things like this that make people understand what you're talking about.
I completely agree, and I think that's one of the differentiating factors between newer and more advanced personal trainers. Is newer personal trainers always use terminology that I just know the client doesn't understand.
Yeah.
Like when you say to a new client, brace your core.
Ha!
What does that mean?
Yeah, so that
What does that mean?
Yeah.
Just say to them, do you know what I'm talking about? Because they're going to say, no. Do you mean breathe out? Do you mean tense my abs? Do you mean breathe in?
So that's
Do you mean suck my stomach in?
Let's use this as
What do
an
you mean?
interesting example, actually, because we don't need to do. We can do this right now, but just as an example, like for that one, a better idea would be getting someone to just like sit on one of the boxes out there, sit upright, and get them to pinch their waist with their hands. So like hands just over hips, squeeze inwards, and then say, "Can you push your fingers out?" kind of thing. Can you do it in almost a 3D way? The easiest one is if you put your hands just like either side of your belly button and get someone and say, "Can you push your fingers out?" Most people can do that. And then generally the further round you go, so if you go to your sides, like just at the bottom of your rib cage, and say, push your ribs out, push your fingers out by using your muscles, can you do that? And then the same just over the hip. And then the hardest one is kind of like the QL area, which is like over the hip but on your back, getting someone to try and puff out into there. Almost separately from breathing as well, because you should be able to brace without breathing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and this matters a lot if you're very strong, but as a beginner, it's kind
Yes,
of like it's not that important. And I would also question, if the core is not braced, how are they still upright and in a good position and posture? Of course it is. It's like...
It's doing its job.
It
But
must
you
be.
have to consider things to start with. If you're teaching someone a goblet squat, which is a fine place to start with someone.
I agree.
For most people. Again, you have to assess that. But the squatting motion itself is complicated enough. And so, and they're doing it with a 5 kilo weight, a 10 kilo weight. You don't need to worry about bracing. They've held a 10 kilo weight before, in whatever form it's been in. So that's going to do that job perfectly. So you don't need to, on day one, start talking about the transverse abdominis and how you need to breathe and brace and do this and how a belt might help you. It doesn't matter.
No, we need to keep the spine straight and go slow.
Yeah.
On the way up and down.
You need to keep your knees wide, your feet stable is maybe the first shout for a squat, something like that. Try and think about using your glutes on the way up, this kind of stuff. Maybe in a few weeks they can pick it up and every time bash out a perfect squat. Right, now, the next step is to talk about how we actually breathe and brace into this. And you can start using I always try and educate people and make them understand why I'm telling them things, because it can seem very just like I'm telling you something. But if you explain that in, say, a squat, all of the power, all of the strength comes from the musculature below the hips, so your glutes, your quads, your hamstrings a little bit, but that the weight you're trying to shift is usually on your back or on your front. It's usually somewhere around your shoulders, isn't it? So you've got a good distance, all of your spine, that you have to transfer weight through, because all the power is at the bottom of your spine, the thing you're trying to shift is at the top of it. So now we need to understand how to stabilize that spine, the most flexible thing we've got, so that you can transfer power through it. And, just little things like that start making for a good coach, because they start understanding what's happening.
Yeah, because you're starting somebody at where they're at with the most important basics, just to make sure that they're doing it safely and smoothly, and then you start moving on to more advanced spots.
It's like, okay, tick, you've got that. Moving on. Yeah.
Okay, so we've discussed what progressive overload is. It's the fact that if you want to get better at training, you have to get better at training. You can't just do the same thing over and over again and just expect advanced results.
And the first one in this was skill, which there's one last component to, I would say, and it's not nearly as important to start with, which is the like mind-muscle connection type side of things. It's understanding your body and how your brain connects to the muscles and knowing how to use them.
Being able to use the correct muscle at the correct time.
Yeah, because there's difference between position and tension.
Yeah.
You can be in the right position in an exercise, but have the tension in the wrong place. And that takes a keen eye to figure that out, but you can see it if you know what you're looking for. So yeah, the positional stuff is kind of skill related. And then yeah, the mind-muscle connection, actually thinking about what is driving that position. If that makes sense.
It does make sense, and it takes years to build that sometimes. Yeah. You have to get to a certain level of muscular size, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You also have to get to a certain level of strength. You have to get to a certain level of skill and control.
Which is why it's less important, I would say.
Yeah, I don't really know what percentage difference it would make if somebody had good or poor, quote-unquote, mind-muscle connection. Mind-muscle connection, for people listening, an easier way to describe it is when you do an exercise, can you feel it working, that exact muscle? And like, for example, I had a client message me last week saying on barbell hip thrusts, she can't feel it in the glutes.
So this is good feedback, yeah.
Yeah, so I had to say to her, okay, I've shown some warm-up principles and protocols to go through to get a bit more like feeling and like preparation into the muscle. But really, it's just because she's not been doing it that long. You just have to just keep practicing at it and then keep squeezing through the muscle, keep training. And even though if she can't feel it in the glutes when she's doing the hip thrust, the glutes are still working, otherwise how did the bar lift?
Yeah.
It didn't get lifted by nothing. So how much does it actually matter if you can feel it? It matters a bit surely, but it's hard to say how much, isn't it? So in terms of different progressive overloads then, ways we can make the training improved or better or harder.
Yeah.
You do one, I'll do one, you do one.
We're going to do it like that?
Yeah, we'll just see how many we can get to. I think how many, there isn't that many. So let's go.
I'd probably go about 6 or 7.
I thought 6.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing. Let's find out.
So skill.
By skill, you mean getting better at the actual exercise?
Everything we just discussed, basically. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna kind of cheat, but kind of not.
I'm cheating. I've got them written down.
Oh, have you really? That's cool. Go for it. I'm gonna kind of cheat and kind of not, but I'm gonna say, just so we can maybe get through more of them, a little component of skill. I'm gonna say range of motion as the part of skill.
So what we also said.
Yeah, because technically volume, which is the amount of work done, is sets times reps times.
Wait, now you're listing all of them.
Oh, I am.
Connor, this game is ruined.
Let's carry on.
Well, okay,
So
we'll leave the more
range.
obvious ones for the end then, because I'll piggyback off what you said, which it would next be like mechanical difficulty.
What do you mean by that? Like actual
slash
weight use?
variation. No.
Okay, what do you mean then?
So manipulating an exercise to make it harder mechanically. So maybe you go slower, maybe it's a tempo thing, maybe you switch your push-up to be like a hollow body push-up, which means you've got more core activation and then it's going to be harder, things like that.
So you're talking about the component of making the technique more advanced or more difficult.
Yes, making
That's the same lines I was on with range of motion as well.
Yeah.
Because what I was going to say basically is, if somebody bench presses a weight but they only go halfway down, and then their twin benches the same weight but goes all the way down.
Twins.
If it's double distance, it's double work done, isn't it? So range of motion is very important. Working the correct muscle with the correct techniques.
It's important for volume and creating the stimulus, but it's just important for health as well. All joints through all ranges of motion.
Yeah, that you can safely and smoothly.
Your turn.
Yeah, okay, so we've spoken about skill, range. Which one did you just say?
Mechanical difficulty, variation of exercise.
Yeah. So like a bit of a different way of saying like used more advanced or better technique. And then I'm just going to go for the most basic and obvious one. Probably the most utilized one after getting the technique sorted is more reps.
Yep.
That's probably the most utilized one in like a resistance training environment, is just if you did 10 reps last week, this week try and do 11.
Yep.
And then that's one more, technically it's 10% more, which is actually good.
Boom.
Isn't it?
And then to complete that would come under volume, which reps makes up half of, and the other is sets. So reps times sets is your total volume.
It's sets times reps times weight.
Yeah.
It also technically times distance.
Yes, yeah. If we want to get kind of and also kind of not. If we're talking about just sheer number in terms of volume, yeah, it's just sets times reps. If you're talking about like work done, yeah, it's distance plus weight.
Yeah, because like I was saying, if you only go halfway down on bench, that's half as much volume as going all the way down on bench. Or on any exercise, if you only squat halfway down, you do half as much work as somebody who squats all the way down.
So that's
So distance is a component.
skill and different variations of it, exercise variation and increasing the difficulty of it, the sets, the reps. What else you got?
Weight increase.
Weight
and
increase.
we kind of already just said that one, but
Yeah.
so when you're doing resistance training exercises, the first thing you want to do is get the technique sorted, get it good, get it right. Work on increasing your range of motion. Like if somebody can't do a good squat, this is another, I mean, you can argue both ways on this, but this is another thing that I see like beginner personal trainers doing wrong in my opinion, is loading people up with weights before they've got like full range, good technique. I'm not really, you can kind of argue why that works in some instances, but I'm not really for that. Like I'm not going to put weight on someone's squat or even really necessarily give them a bar like that often until I can get them down into an actual decent, good position.
I agree entirely, and part of the trickiness with that comes with that there are some exercises, and they're very select and few, that benefit from a technical standpoint from lifting more. Like I think you'd say RDL, for example. I find with all my clients that they don't fully understand it until they've got a certain amount of weight on the bar.
Oh, I understand what you're saying. The technique gets better sometimes.
Goblet squat, for example, I'll have people warm up body weight, give them a weight, and they're like, oh, that feels more comfortable.
Yeah, I think that's to do with the weight positioning, because the goblet squat brings the total centre of gravity forward, and that makes it easier for people to go down without falling.
Which is to say that it's not just putting weight on an exercise, is it? What you were saying before. It's not just making something heavier and harder. Yeah. It's very select and few exercises that benefit for a specific reason, like mechanical tension or a shift in centre of gravity, something like that. Yeah. So you've done weight.
Do you know any more then? It's you?
Yeah, intensity.
What are you classing as intensity?
Training in close proximity to failure.
Okay, yeah. So how hard you actually push the sets. Yeah, that'd be like a variation on like adding reps, basically, wouldn't it? But yeah, that's very true, yeah. I didn't know what your definition was of intensity was, because it can vary, can't it? But yeah, okay, so like how hard you're actually pushing each set. Yeah, okay. Have we said more sets total? We've kind of already done that one in volume. Okay. Then I'll do more sessions per week.
Frequency.
Yeah, increased frequency of actual like work done.
Yeah.
Which is one that works really well for me.
Hello.
Hello. Are you coming in?
Doing?
Yeah, of course you can.
You
We're
can
on
sit
the
and
podcast
talk
right now. Come squeeze here in between us. You're gonna have to share this microphone with me.
What time is it?
It's only 10 past 11.
Okay.
10 past 10.
Get involved yet if you don't want.
No, that's fine. You do you. You can sit and observe. It's up to you.
come here.
You can come and sit down as well.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's the great and powerful, the one and only
Can we do this?
Rebecca Grayson.
Mind
Come
the camera now. Oh, she's knocked the camera.
Oh no!
It's gone poorly.
No.
This one.
She's just left
rotate
Cool
it
Hand
back
Luke in the shot.
Rotate it back in.
And his bald
Here we
side
go
kick
now.
corner. There we go.
Here we go now.
Grayson. We're going to power on. So you're getting involved.
We're talking about progressive overload and ways to make the training better. So what have we got? I think we've kind of done them all now.
I mean, you could get super nerdy, and it kind of falls into every other category we've said, i.e. more volume, more intensity, and variation of exercise. But things like drop setting, mechanical drop setting, it all falls under the other stuff.
Sure, yeah, different ways to push each set's harder. So different, like, pushing past failure. Myo reps, you heard this one, like myo sets. Myo means muscle.
But there's so many ways to do this that it just falls under everything else, basically. So we'll get to this. Nice.
What else then? I think we've kind of covered.
I mean, I could talk about these things for 4 hours because there's very specifics to each one of them, kind of thing.
Do you want to?
Eventually, yes. Yeah.
Not now.
We can. Let's wrap it up. But let's go through each of them with just a few more points.
Go on,
what?
just one
I've
last time.
seen Marcus downstairs.
Oh yeah.
And he said,
my twin brother.
yeah, he was like, why do you get to go on it before me?
He's been on it.
And I'm like, oh, has
He
he?
was on last week.
He's chatting shit.
Oh. I said, 'cause
Marcus, you
obviously
better
I'm
stop
better.
bullying Grayson. You should
Anyway, I said, he said, what's it about? And I just said, so maybe that'll be a thing to talk to him about
What?
when you next get him on.
Yeah.
Get him talking about progressive overload and stuff.
Yeah, we're gonna have him on a couple more times. A little repeat guest, I think.
You mean Marcus Will's brother, not Marcus who works here?
Marcus who works here.
Sorry, Marcus to me means
yeah.
him. Yeah, well, he didn't speak up, did he? He's got nice quads though, Marcus. I saw him training yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
In his little short shorts.
Thick little boy.
Yeah,
Well
his
done,
boot,
Marcus.
on the laying hamstring curl. I saw it online. Yeah.
We'll get you one, bro. Don't worry. As long as you've got shit to say. I know
Are you going to teach us about progressive overload then?
Listen up, children. Let me tell you a story.
Are you sitting comfortably?
So what we'll just do is more just go in the order of how you should kind of approach these. So the skill is number one, like we said. You just want to get good at the things you're doing. Exercise selection is important because if you want bigger shoulders, don't squat kind of thing.
Sure.
Ideally, you want all of everything and you have a varied approach to your training and your training is split thus. But it's not as important as getting it right and figuring it out, because then what you can start adding to that is arguably more frequency, like you say. So maybe initially a stimulus that isn't enough to progress you in the gym is enough to make you sore for a week. So you do that. You don't necessarily get results from it, but it's your first kickstart into, right, I'm lifting. Your body gets scared, gets sore, takes a while to progress, and then after a couple of weeks you can up that frequency as your body chills out a little bit. So frequency is probably the next one. Then it's probably volume a little bit as well. To start with, the volume, so the sets times reps, the amount you do. 2 sets of 10 on everything is probably going to be enough to make you sore for a while. And so again, once that drops off after a couple of weeks, it's then appropriate to start adding in more volume, because that's one of the biggest drivers of muscle building, hypertrophy, like we've said. So volume's probably the next one there. Then we can probably start talking about the intensity of it. So you've spent some time under the same load, the same weight, building up technique, getting it good, you've added volume. Now it's time to start training closer proximity to failure. So you just push that a little bit more, you start understanding what that was. What we were talking about earlier, you find a safe exercise, you push it to failure, and start understanding and getting a concept of how many reps you have left in reserve when you think you're done. And then that becomes an interesting feedback of how you can then use that as a metric. All of this is assuming, obviously, that range of motion and all that is, you're in the realms of safety. That's happened first. And I don't know what we got left. And then the last one would probably be the load of it all. Then you start lifting heavier and heavier and heavier. And then a relationship starts between lifting heavier and lifting more reps, doing more volume. And just assuming you're just hypertrophy, bodybuilding style training, trying to build a bit of muscle, you start having that nice relationship. I lift more reps, and then eventually that hits a ceiling, which becomes a little impractical for the exercise, which we can talk about another time. And then I make it heavier and I run that again. And then if you want to start getting into specifics on how to tailor it for more strength training, more hypertrophy, this becomes the next step. But that is the order that I would take people.
That's really good. I like that. So you went through a nice little progression where you start people off and your first priority was safety and get them moving properly and smoothly and safely through good range of motion and technique.
Yes, sir.
And then you start adding a little bit more work done. Maybe you add another set on here, or you add another little bit of a rep on there, and then you start adding on weight, and then maybe you move on to harder and more complex exercises as time goes on, and then you start working through that rep and weight thing, which I think is a nice conclusion.
Anything to add? Anything I've missed?
No, you haven't missed anything, but I think that's a nice little way to just summarize at the end would be how we actually apply that with the clients is exactly like you've just said. Maybe you guys agree, maybe you don't, but a client comes in, the first thing is get them moving safely and doing the exercises properly. Then once they can do the exercise properly, take like a baseline starting strength measurement is what I do with the client. How many reps on what kind of weight on this specific exercise can you do comfortably and smoothly? Write that down. Usually we make notes or we log things. We all do that, don't we, with our clients? Mm-hmm. Log it down. And then try and make improvements. So if they come into the gym and they can do 10 press-ups on the knees, next time you try and do 11. Mm-hmm. The next time you come in, you try and do 12 or more, then 13 or more, and you just try and add, always maintaining smooth, safe technique with full range of motion. And then, like you said, at some point the rep range gets too high, which for me, I think 15 or 20 is kind of getting enough for most people at most times.
I'd say that increases as your training career does. Like a giant bodybuilder that knows exactly what and where his bicep is could do 30 reps and not really have much interference from rotator cuffs, core activation, cardiovascular fatigue or anything else. And so that might work for them.
And as long as the proximity to failure is good, the stimulus to all the fibers will be the same.
Yeah. But yeah, for most people, for most exercises, for most goals, 5 to 15 is probably a practical rep range.
Yeah, I agree. Just for beginners, I I generally like beginners to do higher reps rather than lower reps. Number one, for safety, and number two, for skill building, like you said. Yeah, because if I have one client and they do 10 reps on an exercise, and I have another client who does 20 reps on an exercise, at the end of the year, the client who did 20 has done twice as many reps and twice as much time under the actual bar, grooving the correct pattern with me watching them, and they will be better at it by the end of the year.
So it's good practice.
Yeah,
Which
so
makes sense.
Maybe so on beginners, I generally use higher rep ranges, like more like 12 to 20, something like this. And then as people get more advanced, if they don't prefer that and they like to do heavier and they can control the weights better in safer ways, closer to failure, with heavier weights while still maintaining smooth technique, then okay, if you want to do 6 reps, good for you.
If you want to get strong,
blast it if you wish.
Exactly.
So then people come in, don't they, and we add reps and track what they can do and make sure they're making improvements, and then either increase the weight when the rep range gets to some agreed upon, maybe impractical or maybe just unpleasant position.
It's as long as you're training to that similar proximity to failure, there is a place that it gets impractical, and that differs per exercise. Lat raises, for example, you could take to 20 reps and not really get too gassed out and probably do it again a minute, 30 seconds later. Whereas a back squat, you have so many variables that could stop you and make you fail before actual mechanical failure of your quads and glutes and the muscular you're trying to train. You could have your core breakdown, you could have your cardiovascular system fail, everything that stabilizes you, that is, your sheer brain, you're just going to get bored and in pain and want to stop. So that would arguably be more suited to a lower rep range.
So you say more compound, bigger movements, you would generally go for slightly lower rep ranges, with isolation exercises. It's also safer, kind of, in a way, to do it that way, because you don't want to be going real. You don't want to be going real heavy on isolation exercises, probably.
No, it's stupid.
Yeah, probably
It's
not.
unsafe
Unless you're really high level trained. If you're advanced, then all right, do 5 reps on lat raises. I don't mind. Like if you told me you're going to do 5, I wouldn't say anything.
It's still a dumb idea training wise, though.
Could be, yeah.
It's like I use the analogy with my clients. It's like using a hammer to drill in a screw. You use a tool for what it's used for, and an isolation exercise doesn't fatigue you, is excellent at metabolic fatigue, which is just a pump in the muscle, which is one of the biggest stimulus of hypertrophy, and that requires volume. So you take it to a high volume because you can, and it works better in those rep ranges. A compound movement, because of those variables we said before, is so quick to fatigue across different variables, and so well utilized at being strong because it's mechanically stronger. It's got much more tissue, much more mechanics supporting it. So use it stronger, and then it's using a tool for what it's meant for.
Yep, I agree. And we've kind of covered the 3 principles of like muscle building, haven't we? I think we've said 2 of them, but not 3. It's mechanical tension, which we already spoke about earlier, metabolic stress, what you just said, and then muscle damage is the third one, which kind of comes from the other 2. From applying mechanical tension or metabolic stress to the muscle, that kind of creates the muscle damage.
Yeah, which is a byproduct more
That's what
so.
I'm saying.
Yeah, okay, I'm with you.
Yeah.
Because volumes probably.
And then the only other thing was if the rep range gets too high and you can't increase the weight, like on press-ups, then you choose a harder version of the exercise, like you said.
So
like I generally give people knee press-ups until they can do 20 full knee press-ups with the hips fully extended, chest to the floor every time. When they can do 20 full reps on that, I know for a fact they'll do 1 to 3 full press-ups all the way down. So I build them up to 20 knee press-ups, and then I tell them constantly as well, that's what we're aiming for. We're going to aim over a period of time to get you up to 20 on the knees, and then when you can blast 20 chest to the floor, we're going to move on to full ones. So then you can, what did you call it, the way of mechanically increasing the difficulty of the exercise earlier? I can't remember what you
mechanical difficulty / exercise variation. Make something mechanically harder.
Sure, I'm going to go for a harder version.
Call you out and bull you a little bit on that, though.
Please.
Because I don't like knee push-ups.
Why?
Because they're not so scalable, because it is a big jump, and you probably add about 30% of your body weight once you go from your knees to your feet, and you can't scale between them. So my preferred option is always to do them on a box.
Yep, I can.
Because you've got about 6.
Smith machine.
So same principle.
Yeah, take it down.
So that Smith, you can go lower by this much each time. Yeah. With boxes, you can go lower by about that much each time. You can hit more specific kind of strength training principles. Like my client yesterday, we did sets of 7 on the black box because she can do that now. And then, it'll be wait till we can do 12s there, and then maybe go to the red box. And that again is considering that a push-up is a performance-based exercise that initially you will get one of. So that's to say you're training for strength, a 1 rep max. So to tailor the training a bit more appropriately, excuse me, for strength training, it's nice to do it in a lower rep range because it'll have a stronger carryover. So in my opinion, it's better to do that on a box.
Yeah, I do both of these things. I agree. Yeah, I use both of these methods definitely.
I know you do.
And you can see the advantages and disadvantages of both. Like the box method also trains the core and the position of the normal press up much better, doesn't it? 'Cause
So
it's the full,
same.
it's the full straight body position. So it's kind of getting them used to steadily planking lower. Yeah, I use both of these, or I like to build them up on the knees to 20, and then if you can do 1 or 2 full ones, then drop down onto the knees and do like mechanical drops that way.
Perfect.
And I try and get them over 10 reps. So if you can do 2 full ones, then we're doing 8 or more on the knees. And then when you can do 3 full ones, we do 3 and 7, 4 and 6, kind of like that.
Boom.
And then build it up. Just a variation on the game to play, because for pushing motions, I get people to do quite a lot of press-ups, because I think unless you can do 10 or 15 full press-ups, it's still probably, in terms of horizontal pushing, it's still probably your most effective motion to go for.
Yeah.
So rather than just getting people to do the same box push-up over and over again, I try and create different ways of...
I don't give a shit about that, dude, you told.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is care and compassion. There we go.
We have slightly different tactics, don't we?
Sign up to Will Hukin's online personal training. Be told exactly
I'm the
what you
drill
need to do.
sergeant. This is how we go with it. That's why I've got cool sunglasses.
That's why we've got shades on indoors. Yeah. And a little pink hair bubble at the back, just for like...
Yeah, like a cool sergeant would.
Yeah.
You don't.
Just to add a little bit of dichotomy to the situation and keep people
Gotta
guessing,
try.
hey.
We've got a fun little couch at the minute. We've got some jazzy leggings going on. We're yattered up, aren't we? This is nice. Can I flick it? Would that hurt?
No.
So I think we've done it, people.
I think good. What do you think, sir?
I think time to grill Rebecca Grayson.
Oh my god. No.
Oh my goodness!
Oh my lord.
I'm
my
just here
yay.
listening,
No, you're here to talk.
and then I'll.
We're shutting up. We're not saying anything on the next podcast. It's on you.
I'm going then.
All right, people. Thank you for listening. We appreciate it. We are sponsored by Connor on Instagram, whose name I've forgotten.
Me, Connor Rhodes Fitness on Instagram.
Yeah, we're sponsored by the Station Gym, which is where we're based and where you should come and train because it's the best gym in Sheffield.
We are all here.
Mainly,
Come
we're
see-
all
come
here.
see all of
Yeah,
us.
we'll squeeze another person on this couch. Let's go. Are we sponsored by you? Yeah,
Yeah.
of course we are. We're sponsored by Becca Grayson.
Fitfix_90 on Instagram.
We're sponsored by me.
WH Body Architect on Instagram.
Yep.
Let's go.
I'm now doing online coaching, so you can give me a message on Instagram, give me an email, which is on my Instagram. Sign up to these things, come and find me in the gym, talk to me there.
If you want to be told what to do and to deal with it.
Basically, yeah.
But
yeah.
you'll get fantastic results. so you
all
can't
facts
say
and no
anything.
feelings. Let's go.
Marcus Hukin Hair on
Marcus
Instagram.
Hukin Hair, yes, please.
macrozinc.net.
Boom, boom, boom.
If you want the world's best online coaching from anybody that isn't Will Hukin, then you need to go to macrozinc.net.
Weirdly, I agree.
Yeah, well, it's not wrong, that's why. It's just them's the facts, isn't it? Anything from you?
Nice.
Okay, good.
For the visual
Okay,
only.
good. Thank you,
Screw
ladies and
you, audio
gentlemen.
listeners.
We'll see you on the next one.
Bye, people.